Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here. I just thought we'd get things started here this Wednesday with a nice little intro here. I don't know if you were with us last Friday. We did a lot of work, for example, at that time going through the stream was entitled doing some refinement studies on the G12 program. So I thought I'd bring these sketches back to look at just a little quick review, because we're going to use these guys today because we're going to take a look at some of the features of the exterior design of the vehicle we're working on and bring on the inside. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this begins to develop. I'm going to call this day a search day. There's nothing really set in stone here as far as a look or a character or a feel that we're after. I just want to use a series of sketches or thumbnail studies on what the interior of the cockpit say will look like for this machine once we get it rolling. And so the inside and the outside will kind of work together. And maybe a counterpoint too. I think this very soft exterior study, for example, we might look at some elements that we can kind of play into as far as the interior space is concerned with some of these canards and the like that we bring them in the inside. But I think the real guts of the story is going to be to get into the fact that one is going to complement the other. And I just want to take this today's stream and explore just in concept sketches what that interior character might look like. So we started there. Let me just kind of go through the lineup here. We started with that one, and we went to switch gears and went to that one where we looked at some of the character again. Changing the view just a touch, going to extend the wheelbase. And again, looking at some of these things up front, like this drop canard and this whole venturi system down below. That might be a clue for the interior material that we're looking at and going to look at here shortly. And then, again, look at little section studies. These might be clues as well. Sometimes when you get into body section or contour work, for example, which this little study is showing, you could use some of these elements to begin to turn upside down or extend or extrapolate and move that into an interior study for what we're going to look at here within the cockpit. So that was the second sketch we did. Then the third sketch, we turned it around a little bit and got back into, for example, what the rear three-quarter is going to look like. And again, a lot of clues here as well. If you look at this little strap here, for example, that could be a potential interior cockpit as it goes around the front of the machine here. So we'll look at that as a clue. And then again, this canard, this whole foil system underneath, looking at possibilities of how that works. And again, the biggest feature here is the exhaust character. Maybe that becomes a digital format in the screen system or the information system that we're working with within the that we're looking into as far as putting the interior together. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of character, Shadow. I mean, we're getting there. I think we still have to refine, tune some surfaces and kind of tweak some things, but we'll put it all together. And lastly, I think the real evil look here is this very front elevation. It's a bit exaggerated here at this stage of the game, but again, certain clues are coming up. For example, look at these twin banks. Interesting as far as the wheel character is concerned. They're floating out there in the Never Land. They're integrated to the actual body form, but they look like they're suspended outriggers or pontoons. So there's a clue there as far as interior space is concerned. So with all that in mind, let's go back to this. I started the whole concept this morning looking at some potential what ifs, and let me just take a minute and explain what you're looking at here. These are a real quick series of sketches based on some of the conversation we just had about what this interior might look like. Now, my honest appraisal of this is, yeah, there's some interesting things going on. For example, trying to capture the overall wraparound of the cockpit itself and putting some pieces in place, going to a steering wheel apparatus with maybe some very interesting paddle shifters or touch control systems, and getting into some visual screens that might be holographic in a sense, and getting a clear shot through as far as the sight line goes into the actual operation. The side view monitor, yeah, the side view monitors are interesting, where you've got direct contact. You're sitting back in through here, so to speak, and in this view, you're back in this area. So you've got a direct shot right through those two twin screens, and looking at some really interesting operations in terms of what it might look like. So I went from the double and then to turn the view around a little bit, looking at it from in this case, the left-hand side into the cockpit itself, just still trying to pick up this very round character. Notice the character of the cockpit or the character of the exterior is still in play here. That's going to dictate an awful lot of what takes place. And what we're missing here is a little side screen, a little blister screen, that support structure that's in there. We showed a little bit of it here, but we knocked it out a little bit to kind of give it some real, hey, how you doing there, Pixel? Good to see you, Chief. Nice studies. Yeah, thanks very much. And I think we're just looking at, this is the first blush I'm looking at in terms of the interior cockpit studies. But yeah, there's a lot of drama in this thing, but I think the thing that I'm really most excited about, and I'm going to play it up in some sketch form here throughout the course of the day, is to get a real minimum, very minimal, but exciting interior that's power packed with all the neat things that this vehicle should embody, like holographic systems, touch controls, fly-by-wire. All these things are going to be part of the whole process of looking at this. So to carry on, this is looking at with a single screen that might be articulating and so forth, and direct the holographic material up front in a big vacuum space. This is all negative here. Then it goes into a power pod, then back into negative again, then seating, and then the actual seating, the lumbar support or the tail section support, or the headrest and so forth, where the pilot's going to be seated. And again, just kind of pulling out of there, from those two studies, going into a little bit more of a detail of what that might for that front end, and more of an aircraft paddle wheel, so to speak, racing wheel, again with paddle inserts on it. And maybe this is a flip screen that's holographic in a sense, or it could be digital. It could go at speed, it comes up, but when you're at brake, it kind of drops. So all these things I'm beginning to think about as far as a character. Hey, Dr. C. So I'm like, hey, no problem, Ballistic. How are you? Good to have you on board. We're just going into a little some cockpit studies here for the G12. And these sketches I started this morning just to kind of warm up on some things about what this interior might look like. And really looking at keeping it very dramatic, keeping it simple. And again, the biggest thing in the interior concept, especially in a racing program, you don't want a lot of distractions. So you want to keep it nice and clean where the real business matter is. Everything else around it, just let it support itself with enough information to kind of support the cause here. And then the last one I looked at was, again, the same principle, maybe a holographic pop-up screen that slides in and out at different speed ratios and when information is needed. And again, the twin systems here, looking at the two, and then the wheel graphics with the paddle grip. But here's all that to say this. In all sincerity, and help me out here, fans, see what you think here. The comment I'm going to make might be a little bit revolutionary, but I just think it's necessary to state it, and to be honest with myself and with the audience here. Yeah, they're okay, but they still look automotive to me. And there's something about the automotive character it works. But are we looking at an automotive machine here, or are we looking at a jet machine on a track? I think it's more the latter. I think it's more of a combat aircraft on four wheels that has all the potential to just blow the doors off of anybody in the track. And it doesn't, these sketches are okay. Yeah, they're contemporary. They get the job done. They fit the bill, so to speak. They've got all the bells and whistles we need. But I just don't think it has enough character in terms of what this exterior is going to look like, or the compatibility of outside to inside. So just for what it's worth, I'm going to go back here and just show you, use a sketch again here. I'm going to start a series of sketches here based on information we just talked about a few moments ago. Some of the character of the reverse recorder, maybe some of these things like the exhaust nacelles, and this upper paddle piece that becomes an active board of some sort. Then there's this whole tray, the under tray, looking at the whole process of having the dihedrals work in an interior space. And looking at this thing too, maybe these outriggers, they're still there. Maybe the twin pods will be there. But let's say, hey, how are you? And it's, hey, Pixel 8, and hey, good shadow. Just trying to pay attention to the screen at the same time here. So these are the things we're working on. But I think the biggest ticket here is this. And we begin to bring in some of these characters here. For example, some of this nose cone material here. Some of this is this canard, this split, this really interesting cantilevered dihedral process. To bring that into the whole idea of beginning to get the interior to come together. So these are the things I'm going to pick up on as far as clues. And again, body section might play into it as well. But I'll go back to this sketch here we just looked at. Yeah, I think we're there, close enough. There's some exciting things happening in here, but let's just kind of take it a step further and move into more of a pilot, like a jet fighter concept study here. So let me just kind of bring out a little sheet of paper and we'll start doing here's little thumbnail sketches. Let's kind of open this thing up and I'll just start doing some cranking work here. So let's just kind of get this in place. Let's walk this in, start going through this whole process. Let's get that round piece up on here. I'm going to concentrate on today, just getting some real loose sketches. And I'll take those sketches when we're all said and done here today and begin to refine them a little bit and kind of tune them in a little bit more so we can kind of use them. Hey, Brother Bob. That's it. Trying to use these guys to kind of tune in a little bit more. And we'll get some things established. Let's kind of get this little piece in that little brow in here. Let's kind of get that going through here. Problem is I move the shape around a little bit. Let's get the belt trim support in place here. Kind of run that through. Let's kind of just bring that back into play here. Let's kind of break this up. Let's take this through and bring it right back into the cockpit. And these are the side sills on the actual body itself. Notice, I'm beginning to shell in this whole concept, pardon my hands here, beginning to shell in this concept to make it all begin to click. So we're going to bring this in, and let's do this. Just going to get that secondary line to come in and bring that into play. Let's kind of let that disappear. Let's let that disappear. Let's come across here and build a bridge. Now let's come back and let's break that bridge up with a nice big center pod that does this. That comes in, goes over the top, and comes through here. Let's kind of put some video stuff in here. Got a couple of banks in place. Let's kind of loosen it up here, put this in place. Let's put a little bit more of a crank to it here. And notice, real fast, real loose, a little bit more vertical, a little more brake. Let's bring this through. Let's kind of put this, keep it nice and simple. Let's break this back a little bit. Let's bring this into play. Let's bring that into play. Notice this all floats in here. This whole upper portion is going to start to float for us here. So here we go. We're kind of up in yesterday. Bring this into place. Get this to go around here. Let's kind of tighten that down a little bit. Let's kind of tighten this up. show us where we are. Again, I'm going to concentrate today on just getting some theme work done for this whole setup here. What we're going to look at, and let's kind of break this into place here. Let's kind of break this sill up a little bit here and get nice and quick with it. And we'll just kind of loosely lay them in here, and then take a little bit of appraisal system as we go through it from one sketch to the other. Let's kind of drop these in just a bit more with tightness. Let's get this guy to kind of drop back. Again, big, huge digital window right here. It's all informational based. Let's do this. Let's split that up. Let's split this guy up. These are twin banks, so to speak. When the pilot's sitting back, I'll show you where the pilot's going to be located in just a moment here. Let's get this in place. Let's get that seating in here. Let's get him in place. There it is there. Just going to crank this back. There we are. So I put this whole process together. There's the floorboard area. This is all fly-by-wire, by the way. This will be all just fly-by-wire. Very open cockpit. Start to open it up a little bit. Kind of like this cockpit. Yeah, that's getting there. So let's get a little more speed to this beauty. Let's kind of break these surfaces up a little more too. Let's kind of take some of the bite off of it here. Let's get this in place. Let me tighten it up a little bit up front here. We're just trying to create this whole offset of things working with this, what we've got already going on the exterior. A little bit more body side on this guy, twin screens, down to floor level. Let's go back into seating here. That's what that's going to do. Now let's come back in and get the header behind the pilot's cockpit, the head area. Let's get that into place. This is where we're all trapping into this thing. It's this, back into that, and just move this pad around here. So sorry folks, I mean just kind of, that's going to break back. It's going to provide a little bit of a home plate patch back here. Let's kind of take that center line right through. And open this up. There's the actual top of the headrest right there. And I'm going to come back in here with a little bit more of that contour in the seat, in the floor. Let's break that back a little bit. Let's put a little rotation system in here. Might be a handheld crank or a piece of work that we're utilizing. To open up maybe the cockpit or the canopy itself, you kind of crank that open. Need at least one cup. Yeah, we got a cup holder. Let's put that in there. A nice big giant mug. Let's go back and kind of get this all squared away. There's that. Let's get that all set. And again, that all set. Just kind of break this in. Pardon my hands here, folks, as we go through it. Again, notice not a lot of weight there. I just want to make sure that we've got some interesting things happening. Let's kind of let that seat disappear. There it is there. Let's kind of bring this into place here. Might be a series of toggle switches along the bank here that the pilot can kind of operate with and maneuver certain things like dihedrals or fronts and rears, and just putting some things, again, much more open. Look at the difference, for example, is when these, let me just bring these back for a second. When these become, let's kind of put them side by side if we can. Where these become a lot more active in terms of being more vehicle related, I'd like to see this thing go more jet cockpit type here. Let's do this. Let me put that out of the way. Let me kind of finish up here just a little bit. Let's get these guys to kind of open up just a little bit more. Kind of break that in, go back in through here. This is the actual front cowl right here. That comes around. There's the actual brace up front. It's on the vehicle itself. This comes in. These guys are free floaters that come off this canopy right here. Let's kind of put that in place. Let's kind of, those cantilever off that center stroke area there. This whole idea is to get this thing to be really minimal. Let's bring that on through. A little bit more of this in place. We actually get that thing to soften off just a little bit more. There's trim level here. Now, I think we've got some interesting things happening in this shape. I think it's a lot more fluid with what we're looking at in terms of getting that. Again, this comes back off the top of the actual vehicle itself. This breaks over and comes back and picks up this and carries on through. So it's a lot more structural, and I think that's a lot more lethal looking. And again, above all else, very much simplified. So just really looks, yeah, very slick. You wear the cockpit. Yeah, that's right. You're going to wear this thing. That's absolutely right, Shadow. So that's the objective. Again, today's stream, for those of you out there, please, thank you very much for being patient with me. Today's stream is to look at this thing from the point of view of just doing some real rough sketches that I can kind of put together. And then maybe next week we'll come back and do some nice finished renderings once we see what we like here as far as the concept goes. No, so just kind of tighten down a little bit more. And then just open this up. Real loose pen, ballpoint pen. I'm working with a ballpoint pen on just the bond paper. There's the base of the floor itself. Let's kind of break this shape up a little bit more. Let's kind of bring this down and do this. A little bit of some little elements on top of that. And then again, break the screen up, graphics. Thermometer, that kind of stuff. Just kind of break it up and just give it some indication of what's going to be taking place here. Some knobs and controls or little warning systems up on top of that. Just enough information to let us know what's going to take place in those two areas here. So really looking forward to seeing what this begins to do. There's one approach right there. So again, the objective today is to look at where we were as far as being automotive related. Let's move this over a little bit. You guys can kind of be the judge of this. And by the way, this becomes that brow. This point right here, that line is now representative of this guy right here. Pardon me as I bring this back into play here. Now my question might be, do we need it? I don't know. That's why we're going through exploratory stuff here. That front strap right there is coming off of this concept right here, taking advantage of that strap as part of the design theme inside the interior, so to speak. So again, but I think it's neat too. We play up, maybe we look at something that has more of these two canards. Maybe we take this whole front end and flip it around and bring it inside. And let's see what that might look like. I don't know, we'll try that maybe as a piece here. So let's do this. Go back into some little sketch work. Or pardon me as I move around just a bit. But last but not least, let me tighten this down a bit more. More pocket area in here. I'm back in and just going to break the surface up. Put some interest back into it. That comes down here. That breaks over. Maybe that breaks over again. That might be a color band of some sort, like an entry pull release. So there we are. I mean, that's a real quick little overhead view of what that cockpit might look like coming in from behind here. So let's start another study here. Let's kind of get this. Let's open it up just a bit. Let's do this. Pardon my hands here. I'm sorry. Let's just open this up. Let's bring this thing right around and get this thing to really open up. I'm going to stop in a moment and explain what we're looking at here in just a moment. These sketches, look how much drama there is in terms of looking at interior cockpit numbers. They're not parallel. These lines are parallel one another, but I'm opening up the space to give it more character and more definition. So hopefully that'll work out pretty nice. Ballistic convoy, nice and tight for the driver to access. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right, Ballistic. Just everything's accessible. I'm looking more of a touch control process, much more hands-on. Maybe it's all holographic, maybe it's all extremely visual, but none of this stuff about using paddles like that I showed you in this initial sketch. I started here, as a matter of fact, and there's a lot of neat things going on. We can take some of the elements that we've got in here, but it still looks too busy, it's too much vehicle related. I want to go much more to the jet fighter or the really high-speed profile machine to get this thing to do. So let me go back and explain. This radius begins to set up the actual form itself. So I'm going to come back in here and strengthen that radius. Let's get that crown. Let's get that one piece that's out there. Let's get that in play. There's that little strap we're looking at. Let's come right down off of that center line. Let's kind of drop that thing right in here. Let's come back in and let's do this on top here. Let's break this up a little bit. Let's put a little bit of belt trim support in place. Now let's bring this out. Let's create that. This is what I'm referring to, those canards we have out front of the machine. Let's kind of break this into place. Bring this back. Let's open this up a little bit more. Take it a little bit further back and open that up just a bit. Drop that down. There's some of the exterior right here. Let's bring that around and play. Pardon me as I move around here. Let's come around and get that to kind of play into form itself. There's a little bit of body section on the outside, just loosely laying in the architecture here. So now we've got that all set. Let's come back in here and say, all right, now, but I want to be really bold with this. And let's come up with a nice little tray here. Let's open that up and break it. Then break it again. Again, come back with a nice little cross member here. Let's kind of notice this is coming off. That whole paddle design we've got out front. I'll show you that in just a moment here. This whole tray, let's bring this back up the cowl, draw through it. We'll come back in there, we'll pick this line up, and we'll draw it right across and pick that line up. Now let's bring that through, and let's bring that through. And let's take that right back into the form itself, right back into the upper part of the vehicle. Now let's get a little holographic screen in here, off that top trim, but let's burn this in. This will be cool. Again, I'm going real quickly here, because I don't want to really commit myself to something that's really, for lack of a better term, final yet. I'm looking for exploratory. What elements are we looking for that will really make this interior become harmonious with the exterior? So that's the goal here, gang. So let's come back in here. And let's get these in play. This into this. Again, monitors. come off that side here. Let's kind of bring this into play. It's got the little hand crank piece right here. Maybe an emergency pull system of some sort. Now, let's bring this into the seating system. Let's kind of get where the pilots. Oh yeah, by the way, fly-by-wire. Now we're looking at something that might be a really cool interest here. Let's kind of tighten this down just a bit. Let's get these banks to work on this side. Wind screens, just real loose. I'm going to fire them in here first. And then bring this into play. Let's drop this in. Let's take that right around, tie it into that, come underneath it. And again, another little rotary, that maybe the thing's adjustable, so that kind of pivots. Now we're starting to build that architecture now again. Here we go. Yeah, Pixel, we're just kind of pushing through the envelope here. It's going to come back outside here and get this thing to come up. Real loose. That goes back. Get this halo in place here. I'm going loose real quick. I'll come back and tighten down as we go. A little bit of thickness to it. And that sits off the top of that structural member on the exterior. That comes down on this tray. Let's break this up a little bit. In between the seats, let's get this thing to sit in here. Let's get this on here for it. Let's tighten this down just a bit. This joystick wraps around this console area. There it is there. It's a fly-by-wire system. And again, comes right around the seat trim, comes out and does this. Opens this up into the cushion. And then there's the actual seating operation right there. So there's the actual seat. This comes out, comes up, and actually comes in here. There's the actual cushion. A lot more activity in this cockpit. I think it's going to be nice to see what, like these monitor screens that might be contour or land contour and so forth. This comes out and does this, and it breaks over the top back into that trim. It's going to tighten down some of these cowl lines here. This breaks open. You can actually break in through here and have a little bit of a tab change. And a bit of a tab change. We're going to adjust the height of that guy as we go through it. Let's put a bit of body into this beauty. It comes out. Again, as it comes closest to me, let's beat this guy up. Get into the exterior just a bit here. Just kind of tighten that radius down. Pardon me, I turn this upside down. Just kind of roll this thing. Let's get this kind of cleaned up a little bit more. So we know where we are. Here's my cowl line here. Here's the crossover. Remember, there's that exterior strut. It comes in and gives me that look. That's where it breaks. That kind of gives me that look. And onto the body side. So let's kind of get the IP in place here. There's a little shoulder that comes up and goes back. Goes back. Let's kind of put a dead space in here. Let's say that that's all open. That's all open back in here. When I get through with all this junk here, I'll kind of straighten it up and do some illustration work on some of these themes for next week. Again, real lucid. A couple of screens. Thumb switch. Down at the base, fly-by-wire. Adjustment paddle. Into the body seating here. Into the wing. And again, notice a lot of stuff going on here again, which is, I think that's where we're going to start to fall together. That has a lot more presence, I think, in terms of really starting to pick up some of the character of this guy. We don't want to be out of step with the fact that this thing has a really mean demeanor look. It has a real nasty kind of connotation to it. So let's kind of get those guys together. This guy, that has got to dictate or else assist what this is doing. So they have to work together here. So I'm really looking forward to getting into the whole process of being able to really take advantage of what this character looks like. It's not vehicle related, it's much more aircraft related. So I think that's that we're after, this real tight cockpit here. Let me tighten down here, sorry. When it's so loose. Just tighten this down, comes off of that, into this video screen, and this stall piece here. A little bit of a break. Release tab. Really lucid. I'll kind of fill in the blanks with some of the instrumentation as we go along here. Let's get this guy to work as well. Let's kind of put this into play. That's where that attaches, and that's where that attaches. Let's come back in through that negative space. This is just a real, so what I call like a visual halo. That just sits up on top of that monitor, and whenever he needs it, that thing is just coming down with the whole idea of being holographic. You're sitting back here, so to speak, and then all of a sudden you're looking out the front of that machine, but you're looking right through this and seeing these telemetry pieces down below you inside your foot clearance. So let's kind of get this, pardon me, let's get that trim in place. Bring that in the roll and that. Let's kind of get these guys tightened down. Thanks for your patience here, gang. Let's kind of take that back and roll that in. Let's kind of put a break in this thing, kind of break it up just a bit so it's got a little more interest to it. And then this is here. That's there. There. I mean, I'm going very quickly here because I don't want to lose the essence, pardon me here. I don't want to lose the essence of the idea. I don't want to get so locked into being so pretty with it. I want to make sure we capture the feel of the character of this cockpit so that it becomes compatible. When we get in the final renderings of this thing, we'll do a nice series of real finished renderings of what the exterior looks like and then its compatible interior piece. I think that's really essential. Pardon me, I'm going back to the sketch. This bugs me here. Get this line straightened up. A lot more weight to it. Clean it up just a bit. A little bit more weight and then take it off the page. Same with this. This might be an exterior push system. Again, for release. This is all happening on the outside. Back to that round again. Here's part of the exterior. Let's get this line. Pardon me as I turn this upside down because I'm thrusting this thing. This is exterior body panel. Let's take it off the page. Exterior body panel. Just to put it in context. Often very nice. Notice how that thing opens up again. I think that's the whole lesson here about taking some of this stuff. I mean, to move through it with a lot of character, a lot of definition. And again, pardon me here, folks. Let's get this strapped in place. That strap sits there. That's that halo coming across the front end of the character of the car, or the vehicle itself. This little bit of exterior work. This is interior. This is all dead space in there, and I'll illustrate that as we go through the process here in the next few sessions. That line breaks through. But notice, here's what I'm getting at. Look at this. We use this form right here, and then modified it just a bit. What we took was this form right in through here, those two canards in that center blister, and brought it right inside by reversing it and giving it this a left-hand bank and a right-hand bank and then a little vertical. Instead of going downhill with it, brought it inside and flipped it up into the glass itself. So it becomes a really interesting thing to really look at what's going on as far as this interior concept is really beginning to project. So again, real loose sketches. Hope this is making sense, gang. Let me stop here for a moment and ask a question. Let me just tune it a little bit more on this guy. Let's tighten this down just a bit more. Lose that. Take that line through. Put that in place, and I'll put a little bit of cut line here, like a separation, so we just get a little more interest in the form itself. And then this will be a freestanding element that comes off of the floor level as monitoring devices for the pilot to kind of run through. It's connected here, here, and again, off this body side. So let's kind of bring this into extension here. Let's get that to work, and let's get that to work. Those are the extenders right there. That's what's cantilevering those two forms. So, what do you think, gang? Making sense? Hey, Streamlabs, join Dr. C's Discord community, and hey, very good. Discord, I've got a Discord thing. Cool. Very cool. So far so good, gang. There's another look at another possibility of getting this thing to look more streamlined and much more contemporary, as opposed to being, as I said earlier, this again. Hate to go back and forth. Yeah, these told a story a little bit. They're okay, but they look a little bit more automotive than they need to be. We can still utilize them as part of the history of the program, etc., in developing the G12 character. But I just think it's so much important to get into doing something that's a lot more lucid. And I'm going to take a minute here, pardon me here again, and turn this pad around and get a little tighter with this radius in through here, so we know where we are. Drawing through it. Just building the shape. Building a shape. And again, we'll start adding a little bit of color in this thing. Hope next time we get together, we're just going to put some of these pieces together and do a nice, I'll refine some of the sketches here and go back in and do a nice job of doing some graphics. Let's do this, just for fun. Let's break this thing up. All of a sudden, gives that stuff a little bit more personality. So this is all information, this is all flight control, and that's all heads-up display. In a sense, it's almost, it is a fighter cockpit, there's no question. Really neat stuff. I think it's far more exciting to get this thing in the realm of being much more fighter-related. Pardon me, let me finish the line off here. Sorry, folks. This is a little bit of recess. There's going to be a pull valve here, a little bit of hazard warning on it, not to touch. That could be a camper release, who knows. I'm just looking through some ideas here to get this thing to really kind of sing for us. So there's a couple of studies there that I think that kind of, pardon me, that take us down the road of getting a lot more in tune with what its exterior looks like. The exterior is extremely simple, very lithe looking, and it's trim. Now this is very busy, but nonetheless, most of the information is happening away from the pilot's activity. So as Ballistic said earlier, it's a much more convenient area where it's just, he's surrounded by information. He doesn't have to touch, it's all there. He's going to wear this cockpit and make sure that all things begin to sing for him here when he puts all the processing together. Pardon me, one more little shot here, tightening this stuff down. So there's one study there, guys. Hope this is making sense. Thank you for your patience here. Let's kind of break this up one more time. 1, 2, 3. A lot of interest. Sometimes just a good old-fashioned sketch will really do the job for us. So I hope this is making sense for you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in here and making it part of the process today. It's a very, very difficult set of circumstances to put it all together. I don't mean that from the point of view of execution, but I'm always conscious of we have a really interesting interior. I was taught at General Motors design staff, we have a really good exterior. Take some of the clues from the outside and bring it back into the inside. And this is what we're trying to do with this whole G12 operation, where we actually make this thing, if we're saying this is a jet fighter with 4 wheels, it's a high-speed vehicle with all the neat things it's going to embody. Let's make the inside work with the outside. That's what we're after. Again, this is strap. Do we need it? I don't know. Maybe in the future, that strap will go, and it's all pure glass. But these are sketches now that are going to help us determine where the storyline is going to go. And on that thought, let's kind of add to it. Let's add another piece. Let's get another fresh sheet of paper here. And let's take a look at what this might do in another element here. So if we open up again, let's kind of open up. Let's get the base set here. Let me just clean the pen up a bit. Let's get the cowl set first. Let's open this perspective up. We're coming through here. Start a line. Come right back in through here and just draw right through it. And I'm going to stop for a moment here once I get this established to show you why this becomes so critical. Let me turn this upside down. I'm going to take that cowl and open it right up. Opening up means, for example, really getting a lot of character into this whole process. That whole shell right there is going to tell me a lot about the perspective. It's going to tell me an awful lot about where I'm going to set elements, what I'm going to use as a perspective base, and how the whole thing begins to work together as a unified whole. Let's get the outside in first. Let's kind of put that piece in place. Let's come down here, put a brake line on it. Let's put a brake line here. Let's get the interior. Let's turn this upside down again. Let's carry this back. Brake. Just to flatter the outside, just enough to kind of give it some character here. Let's kind of break this through. Just enough. I had a question there I think I'll get to in a second there, Pixel. Once I get this line all squared away here. So there's my shell, and I'm going to work this whole thing. A little bit of the exterior, and then I'm going to come back. If I put a section in here, it's this. Coming in this, just a little bit more. There's my section coming into that, and there's a little bit of, let's make that function right there. That's maybe a stop tab of some sort for the, look how wide that thing is, and we're cheating the daylights out of it. Unified design with purpose. There you go. Thank you. Now, see a question. We're going to go back up right here. Let's make the inside, yep, and with the outside, definitely. Seems simple, but so many people forgot during that process. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Pixel. We get so caught up in trying to, here's the difficulty, I think. Let me stop for a moment. The difficulty in doing interior work is we try to make it real, produce reality. Well, if you draw in perspective, you don't get the drama. You need to open it up. For example, you fly one open and you open this. Look at the difference in the scale here, for example. I've taken that whole thing. It's not that wide, but I flattered it by opening it up. And that's what makes it work. Gives you much more room to work with here. So let's go back to this guy. We're just starting to use that same process again to open that shell. I'm not going to draw on here, but this now, there's my center line coming right through here. That's going to tell me where all this element's going to work with. That's why the importance of opening these forms up are so critical, because when you open it up, it gives you a visual sight line right into where the stuff's going to go. Now, let's go back in here. Now, let's really fracture this thing. Let's build a cockpit in through here. Come back over the top of this, and really fracture. Now, I'm still going to go back to the basic theme and build on those two dihedrals on the outside of the vehicle. Let's take this and break it in again. Let's create these wings. Oh, this is going to be fun. Let's create the wing here. Let's open this up, go back to a little bit of a flat here. So this whole thing begins to elevate. See what we're doing there now? We're taking this whole shape and lifting it up inside the cockpit itself, but it's going to provide a shelf for a lot of information. So let's go back into here. Let's draw this back very lightly. Draw that back. That's my guideline, and right back down to the other bank. And I'm going to draw that across, and there it is right there. I'm going to take that connector and run it through. I'll come back up on top of that and change the character of this whole belt line, just that one line, really helping me kind of take this thing apart. That goes through, that's going to come up, and that's going to go through. That's going to break in. Now notice, isn't that cool how that whole architecture begins to set up patterns for me to work with. Really neat to see how these patterns begin to function. Let's come back in through here. Let's come right off of this and say, all right, let's double time this. Let's come off of this and create a wing or a bridge. And another bridge. Drop that in. Off of that, open this up. Step it inside the cockpit. Take that back. Take this back. And take it back again. Run this through. I mean, I'm just making things up as I go here, but they're all going to be part of the process of working. Look how that, all of a sudden, look how mechanical that begins to look, because you're allowing that whole opening up of the interior shell to really kind of sing for you here. So let's kind of come back in. Let's use this bridge here and come down off of this. We'll come down off of that. We'll open this up a little bit, make it a little bit more asymmetrical. Let's open this up just a touch and run that through. Pardon me as I turn this page around here, guys. Let's get this. To get it to right here. Let's taper that in, and let's taper that in. Let's pick it up again. Let's drop that in, and let's drop that in. And let's kind of get these sidewalls to work here. There it is, there, and let's dive it right underneath there. Let's bring this off. One more pass. Look at the architecture setting up where this pod's going to sit. This thing's going to have a real interesting little operation there with all this stuff going on here. Let's come back and do this. Let's kind of drop that seat in place. Let's stop that there. Let's kind of give ourselves, let's put the trim in place. It's this, coming into this. I'm going to soften it off just a bit so you can start to see where the actual seating is going to take place. This comes around, that little pod. There's the actual trim area right here. That's not my seating area. Now, let's get this down. Let's put that little adjustment piece down here in the cockpit. And let's kind of bring this into play. Let's break that into play. Break that into play. And let's just run that right through. Let's pick up this little piece here. Now let's get that halo in place. I'm just going to spot this stuff in and begin to tighten it down. That comes off of that ridge. This kind of breaks, and it does the following here. Maybe that does that. Gives me a little bit of patch piece here. This cowl comes right around. Notice how that whole space drops off. This is all negative back in through here. All that's going to drop off, and you won't see it on the far side, but that's what that's doing. You might have a little bit more of a blister. Run it back. And look how quickly that sketch came together as a result of understanding how to open it all up and begin to look at how we begin to put these pieces together to get this big bridge that cantilevers over the top of this cowl. This is cool. Comes in, steps up, and drops back down again. So it gives it more, again, of that whole look. Sorry again for bringing this back into play. I really want to pick up on some of the things that the exterior is doing. That whole system here is off of this dihedral system here. Obviously, I just changed the character of it, made it a little crisper and less organized and less organic. So it's much more in line with what we're looking at here. So it's helping, gang. Am I going too quickly? So far, so good. Now let's get this some information stuff in there. It's going to come back and just spot a couple of areas here. More information. Let's break that down just a touch. Let's get that fly-by-wire in place. I'm going to start to tighten this down just a bit because we've got something to work with here. So a little halo in place here. Might be holographic of some sort. Come back, let's bring this down to home base. That sits in there like so. So just a glass floater that sits up on top. That's my whole information bank right there. Let's go back in some information stuff here. Get this and break that into that wing. Take this back. Let's break this up just a bit now. Kind of get some of this to work for us here. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. Let's bring this back into play here. There we go. Down to ground, into shape. Do the other part of that process here. Let's bring this into play here. Break up the surfaces. We'll put some information there as we go here. This becomes a little bit of a, now let's get this guy to straighten up, pardon me here. This little release, this rotary release. That element there, kind of by disc dial, brings the surface up or down. This whole end cap can float with the pilot itself, so it needs more information. Let's get this back into place here. Let's get the fly-by-wire in place here first. Again, notice, see that shape right there? That's bringing a little bit of the exterior, that nose cap, into play. That whole front end cap is part of that whole process. Let's get this thing to kind of work. There's its base. Comes off of there, into there. This is all inside the trim level here. This is all part of the seat process. Seat actually doing this. That's where the trim comes back out of that. There's the wing, the bolster. Let's get another little trigger piece up here. And up here, cockpit release. Switch on the end of that guy and bring it back in place. Notice, that's why this view is so critical. Notice that little element I laid in right there. That is part of the perspective. When I started this sketch, by getting this cowl to open up, two things happened right off the bat. Number one, opening that cowl area up told me where my center line was going to be and where my perspective drive lines were going to fall. Notice as I go forward, notice how these lines will go from that element up to almost, as it just floats almost normal to parallel, almost a parallel line. That's what's great about opening up this whole concept of being free and easy learning how to work with perspective as your best friend. I think that's what I'm looking at on these Monday lessons. So let's kind of go back into this. Kind of get that into place. A little more tighten down this guy. Let's kind of tighten it down and not bore you to death here. Let's go back and get these video screens, information panels. Notice they're on one side only this time. We're going to bank it to the pilot's right. Let's kind of get that place. Let's kind of open that up just a bit. Let's creep this in. Put the little pad up on top here. Center line, thumb switch, detent, base, fly-by-wire. And plug switches, dihedrals on and off. All these things begin to have a function. Now we're starting to spot in little detail things as a result of how to begin to put together elements that create a design, but again, at the same time, these shapes and forms begin to really flatter the form on the outside. Notice even this is by accident, by the way. I'm really happy with myself. Geez, I can't believe I just did this. At least I think I did. Not only did we play up the dihedral area, for example, and brought it inside, but kind of crispened it up a little bit, but look at this. What's really cool about that is how this played into play, in fact. This little guy right here, the suspension connection right in through here has a lot of character that has. So, whoops, pardon me, let's kind of get that. Yeah, if that'll work or not. See what we're getting at there, gang? Just interesting how that little portion right there became part of the interior component as well. So we're pulling all these elements. Again, I'm sorry for being redundant here, gang. We're pulling all these elements off the exterior design and bringing a good example of it in the inside. I don't think there's ever been a great design through the history of automobile design that you actually want to, and you counterpoint it with the exterior design. For example, the four-rotor Corvette, very voluptuous and rough. The interior sloped off, very crisp, very round and organic. They all have to work together. It becomes a living animal, so to speak. It's a breathing organism. So that's what we're trying to develop here with these sketches for the interior of this G12. So let's kind of tighten down. Let's get back in through here. I'll quit yapping and get to work. Let's kind of tighten it down. There's that bridge. There's that buttress that comes across. That's part of that. We'll see just a little bit of that happening over here. Let's kind of put that in place. Get that screen to work. Let's get that into work. A little outside blister. By the way, that part right there, that element right there is part of the wing blister on the outside of the vehicle where the wheels are going to be sitting way out here. So we're looking at strictly how the interior works in terms of putting all the pieces together. Let me turn this upside. Oh, I'm going to go the other way here. I'm going to get a little crisper with these lines. So pardon me as I turn this thing, pardon my hands here, guys. I'm going to get myself in the way here, but I want to really get a good acceleration start on these exterior lines. There's the outside, around the cowl. It disappears, goes from thick to thin, and right away, we're going to blast the daylights out of this guy. It's coming right at me. This is going to set the boundaries for me, as will this, as will that. And then again, just a simple little curl right here, body section. Let's take that through. Pardon me again. Look where all the weights are happening up front. As it comes toward me, I'm really bringing up the weight. As it moves away from me, I'm fading. That gives it a sense of perspective right there. I mean, it's just overall how the whole thing begins to function. Let's get this buttress to come in. Let's connect the dots here. Let's let the viewer know what that plane is doing. It comes in, comes back in this trim area. Again, let's change the character of this guy. Let's put this in place. It'd be canopy ventilation process. Let's kind of run that across and do the same thing here. Auxiliary ventilation inside the canopy. Just, again, little changes like that begin to really tell your story. I think that's what drawing to me is all about, telling a story. Doesn't matter how good you are. I mean, I've got a lot to learn. I'm still learning as I go here. My goodness, every day. Every time I get up, I'm thinking, holy cow, how ignorant I am about this whole process of drawing. It astounds me. It really does. But I do not want to become a deferent to you. Do not defer your skills. Folks, I can't stress enough. You get there by making mistakes, because that's where the miracles are. You're never going to get there by just hoping that all works and crossing your fingers. Uncross your fingers, pick up a pencil, get out there and spit on the table and make it stick. Have fun with it. Just have fun with it. And then all of a sudden you begin to discover, oh, this is really, this is doable. It's beyond doable. So anyhow, let's move along here. Tighten it down. A little geometry back in through here. Don't know what it's going to do yet, but there we go. Let's get back into these screens. Let's break this shape up just a touch. Just open that up just a little bit more. Let's break this shape up. Put a little more visual interest into this thing. Just going to drop this up just a bit. Let's kind of break this down just a touch. Let's step that back. Notice all these forms now serve a purpose. You can now take the basic architecture and really begin to carve into it. And I think that's a good point. Let me stop there for a moment just to kind of describe something here. So often we try to do all the detail work first. What I mean by that is whether you're doing an exterior, a product design, or a piece of architecture, you put all the doorknobs in, you lay the glass in, you get all the details down, but the perspective is terrible. It just doesn't work. Reverse the thinking. I was taught by Sid Mead, Lagasse, all the great ones down through time. Do the surfaces first. Create the surfaces. Get the shapes down. Then take those shapes and begin then detail it. Work it backwards. Don't try to do detail. I work with a lot of people who are detail oriented, which is great. But they get all caught up in the structure and they never see the salvation. The salvation is such that get the structure down first, then carve into it. That's what makes these sketches begin to really happen. So let me move along here, folks. Sorry for the interference. Go back over here. Let's kind of get this body side in place. Let's kind of get that to roll off of that. And that rolls down. It comes into the actual body trim itself. There's a little bit of a spacer in here. Let's utilize that. Again, run that through. Again, back in through here. There's some auxiliary switches of some sort. 1, 2, 3 of them. Let's put a split in there. Bring them out, 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 out. Some sort of coating device. Normal surface. Secondary. A little more detail back in through here. Where this rotary is, let's put another element in here. That's normal. That moves in that direction. And you go right, left. Bring that up in place. It's got a little bit of thumb pacing through here. A little bit of hand grip. Let's take that, kind of cut it back a bit, and let's connect the dots. A little bit more detail in here. And we're almost there, gang. Thanks so much for being patient with me. Lots of little stuff going on here. It takes a little bit of time to build it, but once you get the geometry down and you start to see what's taking place, that's all. Let's kind of fill in some blanks here. Let's do this. A little more detail in the sketching around that edge. Let that disappear. Let's come back in through here and break this guy down just a touch more. Right dihedral, left dihedral. I mean, this is just so much fun to be able to put all these pieces together. Now they have content and they have a meaning and they have a purpose. Because again, you've established the structure first. Then you moved in and did the detail. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in there, gang. So I hope I haven't go too quickly here. Let's see, let me stop for a second and read the. I really enjoy watching all this. Yeah, thank you, Ballistic. I enjoy having you be a part of the process. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much. I hope I haven't go too fast or to kind of confuse the audience. The very simple message is this: drawing is a melody. Drawing is a thought process. It's beginning to understand how you begin to see certain things. It's not rocket science. Everybody out there is capable of doing this. I've just been fortunate enough to waste more paper in my lifetime you can shake a stick at. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm not worried about that. It's just really interesting how it all comes together. So I think, nope, I missed a line here, folks. Okay, close that off. All right, so a couple more questions here. I really enjoy watching it all develop. Yeah, it's just amazing how Jason builds it so naturally. When I watch this lesson shows and then see this, it's very, well, it is motivating. So thanks very much, Pixel. What motivates me are people like yourself and others who are joining the stream here to begin interested in what I'm doing here. It's a very different science, I'm sure. It's not the fine art process. In fact, one of my viewers, one of my followers has called me the Bob Ross of industrial design. And honestly, I think that's great. If that's how I'm perceived, and if I can help people, that's marvelous. So let me stop right here for a second here. Notice again how that's, now maybe the thing I want to really point out in this last sketch is this. Let's go back just for the history here. This is where we started. We started with this. You know, that's all right, and we got some things going on here. It's okay. We've got some pretty interesting, like the twin systems and the mirrors and so forth, and the digital componentry working for us. Interesting enough, but somehow it just looked automotive to me. It was still very much today, and that's fine. I'm not being critical of the sketches. I just think the character was not quite there. So when I finished that plate, I thought, geez, you know, this is okay. There's something happening here, but maybe we look at the exterior again and bring in some of the things we're dealing with and from the outside into the inside. Again, let me come back and refer to this sketch. There are two sketches that I really wanted to hone in on here from last Friday's stream, and that was this. We kind of tuned in a little bit on some of the detailing, being a little bit more sophisticated with the machine itself. But there were some clues here that I thought were interesting. One, the suspension connection. Number two, the dihedrals and the canopy. So those things I brought into play, for example, in working with this, really come back in to really play into the fact that, boy, those are elements we want to deal with. So maybe we use that as an interior piece. Then I went back to this guy, same thing. Notice that little flap right there, that was interesting too. Then again, this became part of the signaling series, that became part of the information system we work with just in the last few sketches. And then this big dihedral and this funnel plate that really settles down. And again, last but not least, this view here, the twin pods, the section change, again, just turning, just imagine that turned upside down or flipped on its 9 degrees. And that became, I'm going to blast working with Dr. C. Yeah, this is cool. Interesting how it all comes together and we kind of flip it over and become part of the interior process. And then from all that, we started to here. And again, sketches were okay. It started a platform, but I kept looking at this and my conscience got to me because it wasn't really quite hot enough. It didn't have that same G12 character to it because we spent a lot of time getting some good exterior work down, but again, not bad. So we went from that into this. Let's open this thing up a little bit and have some fun. Let's make this thing a fighter. So first sketch is opening it all up, getting some very different information systems out front, just kind of pushing everything away from the pilot so he's looking at information there to work with. Then on the second sketch is a little more detailed in, getting this halo, this comet, this halo ring up on top of the IP board or the interior structure, and then developing this whole, this cantilever information stem that comes back to the pilot and gives him information. And again, the twin systems of banking, for example, for telemetry, other elements within the vehicle he's going to be dealing with. And again, capturing a little bit of the strap on the front end, a little bit of strap on the front end, and showing how that view opens up. And then the last sketch we worked on was this, where we really took advantage of both of those elements and went back to the interior. And what I wanted to point out in this sketch is this, which I think is really critical and interesting. That this whole idea here, that this if I were to draw, I'm not going to draw a side view. This maybe I'll work on it maybe next week. This elevation comes in, steps up, goes through a bridge, and drops back down again. So this whole thing is lifted up just inside the glass itself, so you can see through it, but it's not an obstruction. If I were to draw a glass line that comes right through here and it gives us a perfect sight envelope right through that holographic window, really cool. And secondly, coming back with maybe simplifying some of the graphics on the pilot's right-hand side, back in the fly-by-wire, all these emergency systems around him, and there's all this information material that he can work with, and then again, shut-off valves and so forth, everything he needs into the cockpit itself, the trim and the like. So very interesting little set of circumstances here graphically. So I hope this has been of some help to you folks. Really been interesting to work with this. And just any questions at all coming up? Any concerns here, gang? Just let me get your feedback on this. What do you think? Listen, Cowboy, here was the after. Hearing you who talked about your thought process in the G12 rework is really interesting. Watching you bounce ideas around until something develops. Yeah, I think that's the thing to do, Ballistic. I've never felt like I'm an island. I really think it's great fun to work with Shadow and Pixel. Those guys are great to work with. He's got tremendous ideas. He has a lot of background information on what he does. He's the doctor in this situation because I'm the outsider. I'm the guy that has a wrist. He knows the inside about Star Citizen, how it all begins to function. I'm learning from him enormously what this thing is all about. I'm the rookie. So I'm really fortunate to be able to work with this guy. Tremendous. Let's see. Check out Dr. Contrast. Yeah, my website. So any comments at all here, gang, before we kind of close things down here? I wanted to develop, today's purpose was to do this. Let's go back and review again. We started here. Whole concept was to get again, a theme down or some concept sketches for the G12 interior. So let me do this. That's where we started. Yeah, not bad. So far, so good. Then we opened this up and said, let's open this thing up and get more jet fighter-like. So there it is right there, and there it is there. Phase 2, second sketch. Getting a little bit. I'm going to take these drawings, by the way, and maybe duplicate them and do some really nice renderings next week if we kind of work on this thing. So there's a reason for this all coming together. The interior we wear, it's exactly right, Shadow. So this is the first thing we did, and then the second sketch is a little bit more romantic, a much more aggressive look at this whole thing, changing the view. And really getting in to see it all just when it all comes together. Yeah, we'll put some color into this thing, all these studies for next week, and really kind of play up on this guy. So that's the genealogy of today. And again, the purpose of today's stream was this, to allow the interior and exterior to work together as a compatible statement, working together and picking clues up in the exterior and bringing them to the inside. So it becomes a really well-tuned and well-thought-out machine. We spent a lot of time doing G12 exterior work, and I don't want to lose the fact that we're going to lose, I don't want to abandon that whole process of coming back in and bringing it back into the interior. So with that thought, guys, anybody, any closing comments at all? Anything you like, you see? Well, good enough. We'll just kind of pick up some things here and move on to the next phase. A little bit of color added for next week and so forth. Let's see, can we see some color? No, love the way it's coming. Yeah, thanks very much, Shadow. It's getting there. It's getting closer. So a lot of fun today, and again, exploratory day, just looking for ideas. The purpose of the stream was to create real lucid sketches, to put information. Yeah, we're going to put info on the screens. Yeah, we're going to do all that stuff when we get into the whole color system. So yeah, that's all going to be part of the process. Today, looking at things to work with. Then next week, we can illustrate them, and then maybe from there, advance it even further. Who knows? We might come up with some very, really neat ideas as a result of going to color. That might change some things. So all that's going to be really well. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join me today. Really appreciate all of you who tuned in and the comments being made and so forth. And again, if you have any questions or things you want me to work on or to draw, please feel free to join me and drop me a note at Jim at drcontrast.com. That's my email address, Jim at drcontrast.com. And then let's go back in here and really look at this stuff. And if you have any concerns about drawing skills and so forth, or want to learn some lessons, I've got a great website built called the Beginner Series. It's a series of 9 lessons on how it all becomes part of the whole process, and just see how it all comes together. So very cool, guys. Thanks so much. Hope you had a great, as much fun as I did creating these guys. These are real lucid, quick sketches that we're working with here. Let me just go. I just saw something. Let's get that ready to kind of turn the corner here and connect some of these dots before I wrap it up here. There it is. A little bit more strength in that line. Got to bring that all together. So there they are in concert. Again, thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish all of you have a great evening. Take care of yourself, and I always close off with this because I think it's really critical to do so, and that's simply this. Always remember to never forget to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the very best. Thank you.